What's possible in a mother-daughter relationship when the daughter is able to finally humanize her mother? Come and take a listen as my daughter and I share examples of our relationship, very hard conversations we've had, and how she has stepped into humanizing me. Welcome to your emotional makeover. Things your mother never told you because no one ever told her. I'm your host, Dr. Amanda Hansen. This is where you reimagine womanhood. Let us begin. Before we get into the episode, I wanted to share with you that on November 2nd and 3rd, I will be hosting an event for 1,000 women in Phoenix, Arizona. Magnetic. Imagine a space where the biggest party meets the most transformative experience. This will be a one-of-a-kind, life-changing event that will divide your life into before and after. Connect with your magnetic energy, discover your feminine essence, and learn practical tools for becoming the woman of your dreams. Claim your ticket at the lowest price possible right now. Spots are limited. I can't wait to meet you at Magnetic. So my daughter, Ava, and I have been talking about sharing a whole bunch of different series. And one of the first series we were talking about is one in regards to communication, because we are both really big fans of clear communication. But that does not mean we always get it right. And so we're going to kick off this series that we'll see how it comes out, maybe a 3 or 4 part series on communication in different kinds of relationships and approaching different types of subjects. But we're just going to really candidly, we're not even sure exactly how this is going to go. We really never do when we do a podcast. We just turn it on. But we're just going to share kind of a behind the scenes conversation of what it got to look like when we had almost a year ago, it was last July, a hard conversation between the two of us. So, all right, here we go. Okay. So Ava, we were in California in June of last year for a couple of weeks and we were having a great time. And I was there working while I kind of came to support you because you were part of an internship out there in California.
Yeah. For 2 weeks we were out there.
Yes, exactly. So we were living in a house together out there with someone who I work with, and also one of your siblings was there as well.
My little brother.
Yeah. So we're having a grand old time. We weren't seeing each other that much because you were working all day. I was working all day.
We were just doing dinners and stuff like that and just some beach day stuff, but literally only like once, I think. So yeah, we were really doing our own things.
Right. And so we were about halfway into that time together at that house. And we were out to dinner one night and there was a moment where the water had run out.
Yeah.
And I had flagged down the waiter many times. They weren't coming. And then they said they would bring the water and they didn't bring the water. And I was feeling very conscious of the fact that you and your sibling didn't have anything to drink and were out.
Because she is you always have the best intentions, but that's sometimes and that's why it's important to have these kinds of conversations to know where you're coming from. But sometimes from an outside perspective, it can be like, for me, I mean, where we get to is me saying, Mom, like, it's not that big of a deal. It's okay. Telling her to basically calm down. And that's kind of where this whole thing kind of started.
Right. Yeah. And I obviously don't react very well when I feel like I'm trying to help a situation in somebody and then someone says, calm down. I think I'm severely allergic to those words.
That's really bad.
It actually makes me not calm down. It feels like, oh my gosh, this person doesn't even see that I'm actually trying to help. So we had a miscommunication, and as many people her age do, she picked up her phone. And I knew she was venting either to her boyfriend or a friend. And I asked her.
I was just like, I'm just going to sign out. Like, I can't deal with this.
I was like, last time I checked, I'm pretty sure I'm here supporting you for your internship. Put your phone down. That's rude. And then it got into this.
Blow up really bad.
It got into like, we couldn't even hear each other. And so we were at the end anyways, asked for the check and called the Uber and got up and started to leave. And you remained at the table for a few more moments before you came out.
Yeah.
So you get into the Uber, we have some words, and I am not happy. Some loud words.
I literally had to apologize to the Uber driver.
I am not happy with the attitude that is happening, right? And so I'm not feeling seen. Yeah. And you're going to hear Ava's side in a moment. I'm not feeling seen. I'm certain you weren't feeling seen. Completely missing each other, both carrying our own stresses and our own big stuff that was going on that day in our professional lives, and then not being able to really hear what the other person needed. So we go home, we arrive to our Airbnb, and I go in ahead and I go right into my room and close my door and get ready for bed, because I know myself well enough to know I was not in a place of being able to have a conversation. And I think sometimes we also fail to realize that even parents' feelings get really hurt.
Yeah, which is a big thing. I think especially mother to daughter, and I think I've realized this a lot more since having this since we had this conversation. And I kept on telling you that I've been able to see so much more of you and me, whether that's good or bad. I mean, sometimes it's like not the best qualities because we both have a short fuse or something like that, but it's just being able to see you as not just a mom, but like a human, and like knowing that you've had similar experiences as me. And it's not just, you're just just a mom. Like you have so much more to you. And I think that's important too. Like that's something that I think I was able to see more once we had this conversation, and then all that going forward. So, yeah.
Right. So then what had happened is I went to my room, she went to her room, and the next day, through the help of beloved Diana, who works for me and is a big, big part of our lives. We love her, adore her so very much. And she's family to us. And Diana, who is just extraordinary at being able to kind of be a mediator, if you will. I don't think she had expected that was the role she was going to play, but essentially
she's like, I just want to come to California.
She went upstairs and I went to bed, and I didn't even know that she'd gone upstairs to talk to Ava and Jax, and really for them to have some space to kind of air what was going on and offer the idea of a conversation for the next day. So I'm going to let Ava up until the end of that night, you explain your part, and then we'll talk about the really transformational conversation we had in the backyard the next day when we were both done working.
Well, I would say obviously, so Diana came up that same night, like a few minutes later, and I wasn't, similar to you, I wasn't in the right space to even think of a solution in that moment. So I was honestly kind of pushing that idea away when she was trying to, I mean, I'm so thankful that she did, but I think it's normal to not be able to fix everything right then and there. Like, I'm happy that we didn't even try to do that, because like, we were both angry. Like, we couldn't see that as a possibility at that time. But she basically was talking about, I mean, she was sharing her own experience and how it's just important that, like, this is an important relationship, but she was validating me.
Yes.
And she was trying to defend you, but also making sure to validate me, because that's important.
Absolutely.
So, and I don't think I would have listened to her if she wasn't doing that, because I needed her to see me.
Yes.
And she did. So that was important. And obviously I then needed you to see me, which we get to, but I think that was important, and kind of, whatever. I don't really know what conclusion we came to, but I was like, okay, I guess like we'll probably end up talking. But I still was not in the best place for that. But then we did end up talking. I mean, we were still, the next day we talked, but we were both like hurt, obviously. And it's just this kind of like awkward tension, and neither of us really know what to say. And we're still kind of on that. Yeah. I don't even know what the word is, but we're still, what is it? Like, still in that like energy kind of at the beginning. And it took us a while to get out of it.
Yes.
Like, once we started talking, we had a long conversation.
Yes, we did.
It took us because I was going back and forth with you saying like, you're still not getting it. And and it just feels, and sometimes it feels really hard. It did feel really hard. And then we could have given up, but thankfully we didn't. So I know you want to talk more about like the conversation itself. So.
Yeah. So you had to go the next morning.
I went right to my internship.
Yes, we got up. Basically, I think we had a chance to say goodbye. Have a good day. Can we talk when you get home?
Yeah.
So we both went about
I was
our
like, sure, bye.
separate. Yes, you did. We both went about our separate ways, did our work, and reconvened when you got home.
That definitely helped too.
Yeah.
Like, I think allowing yourself to, like, this is in any relationship, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I do think you should talk about it right then and there. It kind of depends. But I think sometimes it's okay to let yourself have some time to calm down and cool down, because if you don't do that, it might just not get anywhere.
Absolutely. So. Sometimes that space, it just gives you perspective too, and lets you take some deep breaths and come at it. Sometimes when I'm in such a fired up energy about something, or
we're in like fight or flight mode, like we're just ready to, like we're combative, like we're not in the right, we weren't looking for solutions at that point. So
right. Exactly.
We weren't open to them, I guess.
Right. And so when you came home later that day, I'd asked you, do you feel ready to go in the backyard and have a conversation? And you said yes. So we went back there.
I don't think I could have like went on with that much longer.
It was so painful.
Yeah, we had to at least try to talk about it.
So painful. Yes. So we went back there and we started having a conversation, and you had referenced that there had been things that I had done that had really made you feel unseen or unheard in the more like 3-year recent past that you'd been holding on to. And it took us a few minutes to get there to that. Right. And I had no idea that you had been, for lack of a better word, holding on to or harboring those things so closely. And we're going to share that in a minute and what it was. But the point is, I could have never possibly known if you'd not been willing to share that with me. And if you'd not been willing to get uncomfortable and lay this out, and also do it in a way where we weren't yelling or screaming at each other and then couldn't have heard each other. We waited a day, calmed down, and were able to really, really hear each other.
But, and even the thing is, like, yes, we were able to hear each other, but it also wasn't, kind of like I said before, it wasn't that simple. Like, it did take us time, even in that conversation.
Yes.
For you to hear me and for me to hear you, because it's like, we want to defend ourselves so bad, and we want to think that we didn't hurt each other, and we always have the best intentions, but that doesn't mean that it's always the best for the other person.
Yes.
And things that I have done, I don't even realize that it's affecting you, and vice versa. But it wasn't like I tell you this and you're like, okay, like, I'm so sorry for that. Let's move on. It's not that easy, but thankfully with time and continuing the conversation, we were able to get there. But I just don't want anyone to think in any type of situation, in any relationship, that it's ever that easy.
No,
because it's not.
No.
And since this conversation, we still argue. I mean, it's different. Like we still get annoyed with each other, but it is different. Like, we needed that to break through like a deeper thing, a deeper level of what was really going on and why we were getting angry with each other all the time, and like just getting pissy with each other for whatever reasons we didn't know, but deep down we did. And this conversation allowed us to bring it up.
Yes. Yeah. So do you want to share the conversation? I mean, with as little detail, as much detail as you feel comfortable.
Right. So there was a few things for each of us that we were holding on to, but I would say that one of them was, and you said it was around, most of the things were within a few years. Yeah. Because that's just more relevant. I mean, there's obviously probably been things from years ago, but at this point it was too far gone. But so this was last year. So then a few years before that, I had lost one of my best friends, and was really struggling with that and going through that. And then about a month after that had happened, we were having a family friend party thing going on. And I had just come from spending time with my ex-boyfriend, who was also friends with the person who died, and it was just a very close proximity situation, and had some really hard conversations, and just was not in a good place just from those conversations, but so it just added on to the layers, because I was already in a terrible place because I was grieving, and then came home, and I think you guys were all like sitting out on the back porch or something. And I kind of think I like motioned to you, or like you could just tell that I was upset. So I kind of called you over, and we were talking in private. And I think I was just saying like how upset I was. And I think maybe I was like crying. And some of the people who were there were my age. Like they're like sisters to me. They're like my really close friends because they're the daughters of the parents who were there, and they were all upstairs. They had been there for like an hour or something. So obviously I'd been late to this, but given the circumstances, I figured like it was okay because everybody there knew what I was going through. But you had basically, and again, it's like you have your own reasons for everything, but you were basically saying like, and got kind of like, and that was what was hard too, is for a second you were like, you're very nurturing, self-understanding. And then it's kind of like this switch where you're like, all right, well now I'm a host for a party. And like that kind of got mixed up. So you basically were saying something like you need to be here for your friends who are alive. Like you need to, like, they're going to stop like hanging out with you if you can't be here and stuff like that. And obviously, again, you had good intention, but it just, for me, it was a very wrong time for that. And just totally wasn't what I needed. So that was really hard. But again, you didn't know. Right. So that's something, and I didn't say it to you. Like after that, I just kind of like dealt with it and moved on. But it was definitely one of a few things that I held against you because it's not really like you. I think that was what was hard too, is I didn't expect it from you. So it's just, I think that much more upsetting because you were always there for me through that entire like grieving process. But I think there was a few times like that where it was just kind of hard because I was kind of like shocked, I guess, because I wasn't expecting it. And I think it wasn't what I needed, obviously, but yeah.
Right.
But thankfully we were able to talk about that.
Yes. And I was able to fully hear that and receive that and see it from your perspective and how that was the last thing you needed to hear at that time. Right. And really deeply, sincerely offer my apology. And then that took a process, right? That alone was its own process. And then moments later, I said to you, if you want at all to understand the perspective, like why I said what I said, I'll share that with you. But I also understand if you, and I'm not sharing my perspective to negate your experience or your feeling. And I think this is where we can start to help. And my husband and I, Dad and I do this so much. Yeah. It's like after the other person fully and genuinely can receive it and feel it and it be deeply apologetic for the way it was experienced by the other person, for the other person, if the other person's willing to hear it, to be able to say, if you're at all want to know the inner workings of what was happening for me, because again, this is how we build intimacy in relationships. Because
it doesn't have to be you using it as an excuse. It's
never.
And I think sometimes it's important because once you can understand me, because at the root of it, that was the problem, right? But then once you can apologize for it, then we can kind of backtrack and see like where you were coming from, because it doesn't have to be like you using as an excuse. It's you explaining why and kind of validating your reason, even though you can acknowledge that it wasn't right. It's just showing where you were coming from at that time and why you did what you did.
Right.
Because it obviously was never to hurt me. It's never to do anything bad. It's just so obviously, but it's important to kind of explain why and ask the person if they want to hear it and allow them to do that.
Right. And it's never like I'm sharing this as a negating of your experience, or minimizing how it felt for you. Yeah. And obviously also with that comes all the ways in which I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could go back and do that so many days over, how differently I would have done it. I was so in my own concern for you because I felt that you were isolating. Yeah. You were very social before that. And the grief, obviously, for some people, the response is more isolation and pulling away. And as a mom, I was feeling the fear and the terror of you pulling away from the people who were there supporting you, who loved you, and feared that in time, maybe they would all drop out of your life because you weren't able to be in any kind of proximity with them. And so I think at the root of it was quite honestly, and I think at the root of a lot of parenting, whether in mistakes and not mistakes, is there is a fear that we may lose our children to severe depression. We may lose our children to drugs when if we catch them experimenting. often wrong or indifferent or in any way that we show up, more often than not responding from a place of fear because we see the potentiality of our child and we're afraid that we're losing them and they're losing themselves in the world.
I think fear, and also, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, but I guess just always wanting the best for them. And sometimes what you think is the best isn't always the best, but it's coming from a place of thinking it's what's the best for them. And maybe looking more in the future and less in that exact moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that definitely.
And it's so interesting. I think we came to, and we were both bawling our eyes out. We were crying so much and hugging and crying. But it didn't start that way. It started like in this like kind of guarded, where do we go from here? Is it even possible? Like, because the night before had been so intense and so heated. So I think the beautiful thing because of that is we also decided that we were going to kind of have like a code conversation or word that if we ever started to feel like, we both decided, if we ever start to feel like there's water going under the bridge that's not being talked about, or we're feeling disconnected from each other in a way that's not just like an annoyance, like how you take all my clothes out of my closet and I can't find them until I see her come home from college with them on. Okay.
She's like, oh, there's my tank top. I'm like, Mom.
I literally, she wears things that I thought I lost 2 years ago.
That's true, but sometimes you gave it to me and then you forget you gave it to me and I'm like, why are we doing this again?
Okay, no, because now it's a family joke every time. Like, I love that outfit, Ava.
I'm like, oh my God.
But aside from those little fun, playful things, if we really start to feel like the percolation of discomfort or I'm feeling annoyed more than normal.
Like a deeper level.
We promised each other we would come and say like, I'm feeling further away from you.
Yeah. And go back to that moment and say like, let's go back to like that. And and remember where we were in that conversation and like how badly we want it to work and how badly where we were at, but like neither of us want to be there.
No.
So, and we both at the end of the day, like we have the same wants. You know,
we do. So, we have the same intention for the relationship. And it's so good.
We figured that out. It's like, what do we both want? We obviously both want this to be good. We both want it to work. So even though we're very similar, but also very different. So it's like, but at the root of that, we both want it to work. Yes. So we just have to like, that has to be the home base. We have to always remember. And I think now we can use that conversation as the home base.
100%.
And also kind of as an example, I guess.
Yes.
Like that it is possible.
Exactly. That we can figure out anything together if we're both just, again, curious and willing, like we've talked about.
That's the main thing. And what we'll always come back to is, and in any relationship, you have to be curious and you have to be willing, because I could have tried to tell you those things, but if you weren't willing, you wouldn't have heard, and vice versa in any relationship.
Yes, 100%.
And also, sorry, not to speak up, something that Dad always says is to have humility, which I think sometimes I really do struggle with, but I think that's a really big one.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to be able to admit that you've done something wrong. You have to be able to apologize. And that's hard.
Yeah.
Because again, with the intentions, like you always think you're doing the best and you don't want the person to see you that way, and you don't want to admit that you were that way. But that's a really big thing too.
Yes.
Because I could tell you these things and you have to be willing, but you also have to be able to accept it.
Yes.
And acknowledge it. So I think that's
to own where I went wrong and to be
and same with
apologetic about it. Yes, of course. Of course. And so as we kind of round this out, what would you say has been your biggest takeaway? Because you referred to a conversation in regards to, you kind of feel like after that conversation, you in the backyard in California last year, that you humanized me. I heard you say, like seeing me as, oh my gosh, she's more, because I shared some things about my childhood more than you had known prior. And I think for you, it was like, oh yeah, that's right. And I remember saying, I know at times, because I did this as a kid too, I know at times in a teenager, you look at your mom or your dad and think, how could they have got this wrong? Or how are they making a mistake? Or how are they not meeting this need for me? Not recognizing or realizing that as a mom, I'm also a wife. I'm also a daughter. I'm also a sister. I'm a business owner. I'm a best friend.
And it's also, this is your first time being a mom.
Yes.
Like that, when I heard that, I was like, I don't even remember where I heard that, but that is That's another thing too, because how the hell are you supposed to know?
Like, there is no, you don't. For anyone listening, we don't know. Yeah. Here, the jig is up. None of us know what we're doing. We are literally bracing on for dear life and doing what we think feels like the right thing. Yeah. But often we are making a ton of mistakes, and we just keep hoping that our kids will see deep down the heart of who we are, and that we really have that best intention. Yeah. But I'm certain, and I said to you that day, and will say to the end of time to all of you, that I know I've made way more mistakes than I've ever wished I would have made, and wish I could go back and write them. But I also was learning, like it's on the job learning, on the job training with not as much forgiveness if I push the wrong button on a computer as opposed to push a wrong button in a human heart that could have long-term repercussions. Right. So that's why these conversations are so helpful. Yeah. But I this past birthday of mine, we should have like had that letter, but this past birthday of mine, I think was we have this tradition in our family, which we'll talk about maybe in a different podcast, and why it's so helpful and beautiful. That's a good
thing for communication too, because that's a way to tell people things that you wouldn't normally tell them.
Yes. Do you want to tell them what we're referring to?
The one that I wrote for you?
No, just like our tradition.
Oh, yeah. So, basically you started this years ago, like before Jax could, my younger
probably brother. 18, 19 years ago I started this.
Yeah. Yeah, or maybe a little more recent than that, because I was old enough to be writing them. And Jax,
well, they were usually on like construction paper and more like a picture.
Okay, right. Yeah. They have developed so much. They've developed a lot. I'm always just thinking about them like when I was fully writing letters. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they really have been around like our whole life. But yeah, it's basically where if it's any of our birthdays, so let's say it's your birthday, Mom's birthday, we will each, within the few days like leading up to it or before, I mean, the one I wrote for you this year was way before, but you would just write, and it's not just like, cause what I feel that a card with your name signed on it, it's still thoughtful, but it's just, you're not getting to the deeper.
It feels more impersonal. Yeah.
It's
less
personalized.
It's
like we're family and we have so much to say. And I think sometimes you don't even realize how much you have to say until you start writing it.
She's talking about writing letters.
Yeah. So basically, sorry. We basically will all write letters. So if it's your birthday, all the siblings and dad will all write you a letter, and then we'll sit around at the table on your birthday, and we'll all read the letters we wrote to you out loud. And then obviously like we'll all like cry and hug, but it's just a really good way, because it's a way to say, I mean, because whenever I see you, it's I love you and whatever, but it's a way to actually get deeper into things and tell stories and just talk about less surface level things and find other ways to say that I love you. And especially because it's your birthday, and like it's just such a great gift to hear from the people you love how much they love you. So I love that tradition.
It's my favorite tradition. And we do this for everybody's birthday, all the kids as well.
Yeah, not just her.
Yeah, this is not just for me. I started this tradition, but we all do it. Yeah. And I even think for like your brothers, like it's really helped as far as like, how do you raise, which is a whole nother episode, but how do you raise emotionally mature men? Yeah. You teach them from the time they're 4, 5, and 6
to share their feelings and not just like have the feelings, but tell people and not be embarrassed, and like realize how amazing that can be to have that emotional capability. I think it's great. And I mean, now I do it with my boyfriend. I mean, we do it on each other's birthdays and our anniversaries, and you do it. I mean, obviously you do it with Zach because he's part of our family, but everyone has started to do it more. Some of my friends do it. And I think it's just, and some of your friends do it with their families now. I think it's a great, great thing to do. And it doesn't have to start. I mean, from where it is now versus where it started, like we write so much more now, such deeper letters. And it's just every year, I think it gets more special.
It's just, it's the biggest piece of advice I give to people as far as building relationships. Yeah. It's the greatest gift. And then you end up with like this, hopefully, box of letters over the years from everyone in your immediate circle. So, but this past year, when you were reading my card, I think it was, I heard in the letter that you wrote to me, I heard that was such a pivotal moment for you and me. And then you were thinking about something one day after school in the shower at college, and how it all just kind of trailed together and brought us to this place where we are now. And I think feeling the closest I've ever felt to you. I'd always felt close to you, but I think I feel now in a way that is like, it's two women kind of relating and understanding how much goes into being a woman.
Right. And I think I did talk about that in the letter. And I think since that argument and that conversation, I've felt it a lot more. And just, I think, recognize it or been open to seeing those kinds of things. Again, as I've become older too, seeing myself or seeing you in me and the things that I do. Like, oh my God, like that's something that I used to get annoyed at her at. But like,
remember
now
at the restaurant the other night when you reached over and you're like,
because I always, my dad was telling my brother something at dinner, and my mom knew the story, like they both knew, and my dad's trying to tell it, and my mom just keeps on like saying stuff and jumping in and finishing his sentence, and I just said to her, I'm like, I love you, and then she was laughing, she's like, what, and I had to tell her, I'm like, that I do that all the time, and it's kind of like, it's special to be able to see those kinds of things. It's like, it's just who I am because I'm a part of you. So,
and what I love so much is what you shared is you said, and everybody started laughing. But what I love what you said is, where before maybe you would have gotten annoyed by that. Now you not only see it also in yourself, but you recognize it's just like the excitement of the story being told.
Yeah, because you want to share it because you know it and you want him to know. So, and that's what it is. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's like funny and it's cute, but I guess like some of the things, like it's the good things in you that I see in myself, which is amazing. And then the things that I would get annoyed at, like just you having a shorter temper, and so do I, because and now that I have more things to worry about and I know more about the world and I have more anxiety about things and stress, it makes so much more sense why I'd be like, why the hell is she flipping out after 2 seconds of something not working? And not that that's always the best thing, but sometimes it does happen because you have so much going on and you're so stressed and you're like, oh my God, can this just work? Or, oh my God, can you just do this thing?
Yeah.
And now I see myself doing that sometimes. And in a way, I'm like, oh my God, but sometimes it's like, oh, it's like, that's like my mom.
Yes.
So it's like cute, but it's also like, oh my God, now we both have issues.
It's so true. Yeah. You end up morphing into this, this woman you said you never would become.
No, literally, I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to be like that. And now I literally am, because it makes sense. It's impossible not to be at times. Like when you're in the real world and I mean, you have so many, you do now. But even then, especially like when we were younger and it would happen, like you had so much going on.
So many moving parts and pieces.
And then I couldn't even understand that.
No.
And again, at that point, I'm seeing you as my mom. Right. I'm not seeing you as a woman, as just a human being who doesn't just have to be there for me, who was there before me and everything, like has her own life.
Yes.
Even though it probably didn't seem like that because we were literally always with you 24/7.
Yes. And it's cumulative, right? Yeah. Like when somebody's having a reaction in one moment, it's probably 17 other things are on their shoulder before that thing happens. And the one that I know now we laugh about, but I mean, there's many, but I know that, and I've come a long way with that, but the one I really think about is when we were in Martha's Vineyard.
Oh my God.
With the lamp.
Oh yeah. That one's hilarious now,
but in the moment you were probably like, wow.
You're like, she's insane.
Yeah. Do you want to tell the story? This is an example.
Yeah. Okay. So this was years ago, but
at least probably 10 years ago. Oh my gosh. It's got to be 10 years ago.
Yeah. So we get to this house in Martha's Vineyard. It was so many of us. It was all of us kids, but then also other
kids we were hosting for the summer.
So it was just a whole bunch of people, and I'm sure there was stress before we even got to the house, but of course I didn't know that. But we get to the house, and obviously like this has been a plan for a while, and you and Dad want the best. I mean, you put your money and time into this, and we get to the house, and the house is nice, but there's ants everywhere, and it's just so much is going on. Some things I can't even say about some of them.
Yes.
So just some crazy stuff was going on. Which is all so funny now, but was not then.
Or then.
Yeah. So, again. So me and one of my brothers were sharing a bedroom. And of course, among the million other things, I guess our lamp wasn't
No, the
working.
drawer was
Oh,
stuck.
the drawer was stuck.
And I told them to go and start unpacking their suitcases.
Right,
and they're like, Mom, the drawer's stuck. Can you come down and open the drawer? And I'm like, just another, in my mind, I'm thinking another of the 30,000 things going wrong at this freaking rental house. So I'm trying to open the drawer and it's stuck.
We're sitting there on the beds. She's actually going insane trying to open this drawer and it's stuck. It's stuck. And there's a big lamp. I can't. I'm like picturing it. Me and my brother are just looking at each other like, oh my God. And then she's going crazy. We're like, Mom, like, it's okay. She didn't listen to us. She's still trying to, I can't get the drawer. Oh my God, like freaking out. And then I'm like, oh God. And me and Hayden see at the same time, the lamp on the top of the drawer is like shaking. And we're like, Mom, the lamp.
I can't
we're
right
like,
now.
Mom, the lamp. And of course, she's like, oh my, like not listening to anything.
Yeah. I was like, be quiet, you guys.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do this.
Like, and then of course the lamp falls on her head. The lamp comes falling down on her head. And right after that, of course, we're like, oh my God, Mom, are you okay? She's like, don't talk to me. Like she runs out of the room. We're like holding her head, runs upstairs, which is another thing that's so funny too sometimes. Like if I get hurt, my boyfriend, his name's Chris, because I'm going to mention him so many other times, but like I've had to tell him because sometimes, especially if like he accidentally hurts me, obviously like he's going to say sorry, it's not his fault. But sometimes if I'm in pain, I'm just like, just for a second, like let me breathe. He'll be like, sorry. I know. I told him, I'm like, Chris, like I love you so much and I know that you're sorry, but you don't have to say sorry 8,000 times because it doesn't take the pain away. I was like, just say sorry and just let me be in pain for a second. Like
it's like causes more anxiety.
It's actually more anxiety for you to be like, sorry. Like, cause I know you're sorry. But it does that's another thing too.
Or how about when the lamp falls on your head and somebody's like, are you okay? And I'm like,
obviously not.
Do you think I can talk right now? I mean, why are you asking me questions?
Yeah, that was another thing that like we used to deal with all the time. Like if you'd get hurt, like, are you okay? And then you'd get mad at us for talking. I'm like, so what do I do? If I don't say, are you okay? Is she going to be more mad? But if I do, she's going to get annoyed. I'm like, how do I win?
So now the hilarious thing is if I do get hurt and we're like on a family vacation or something, everybody just kind of looks at each other and they're like everyone's just like dead silent until I'm like, okay, I'm all right.
Like, I don't even know when. I think you like, when you hit your finger in the door or something.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe that was just you and Dad, but I remember like that and Dad was like, yeah, that was scary. Yeah. But anyway.
But we share all that to say the humanizing of your parent can end up being such a beautiful thing. And then when you start to see qualities and traits of your
and see why they respond that way.
Yes.
Because again, like when I was younger, I didn't have the issues and the stress that I do now. So I couldn't, it was that, so I couldn't relate, but I also didn't know half the story of what you were dealing with. So it's like now that I'm older.
Nor should you have because you were a child.
And that's important too. That's something you also said in the conversation we had in June. I think something like that of there was so much more going on, Ava, but I didn't tell you because you were a kid.
Right.
And I shouldn't have to tell you. But I think it's the combination of now knowing there's still things I don't know and there's still things you don't know about me, but which is good because we should have our own things in our own lives.
Course.
But now that I know maybe 85% of why you might be pissed off and I can have my own experience to relate, that just makes all the difference. And I think there's it's kind of the rough patch why I think so many teenagers and moms have trouble because it's either you're a young kid and it's different or you're older and it's different. But then when you're going through that stage where I'm like actually getting aware of the world and then I'm also dealing with my own things, but still not really knowing you and we're just more combative, like that's the hard stage, I think. And I think we were kind of in denial with how hard that was and ignored some of the things and it just built up instead of having that conversation we had in June earlier.
Yes.
Which I think is why this podcast and these kind of conversations are important for people to hear because I'm happy we did have the conversation, but maybe we could have had it way earlier.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to try and get to that sooner.
Absolutely. And as we kind of close this out, another conversation I really want to come back and have, whether we do it together or I do a solo episode on it, is around this motherhood wound, which often evolves then into sisterhood wounds. Because the very first experience you're having of being a woman, and with a woman, the first main woman in your life is your mom. And so I really am so thankful that we've been able to have the hard conversations and keep growing together, because you often, all women, myself included, often have that as our first example in the world of what relationships with women get to look like. Do we have a hard patch and then we just shut down, build walls, and go separate ways? Can I trust that you can hold my feelings? Can we have like repair after a rupture? So much is being informed about you being a woman in the world and how you relate to other women in the world as it relates to our relationship. This is why mother-daughter relationships are so worth the effort and the work, not just for that relationship, but every relationship the daughter will go on to have in her life with other women.
For so many things. And like, this is even different, but about how you view yourself and you talk about yourself, how that would affect me growing up. And
let's have a whole conversation about that another day.
That really is everything. But the thing is, it's not just the mom, it's the dad too. The way that the parents are in a relationship together, how they communicate together, how they treat each other, how you treat yourself, how he treats himself, how everything is important. And like, it's really crucial for everything. How I grow up and who I become is a really, I mean, it's other things, of course, but it's a really big, you two are a really big part of it. And I think especially you, because and the way that my brothers probably feel that more with dad, in a way that they can't feel with you, is the way that I feel with you that I can't feel with him.
Right.
I still need things from him.
Of course.
And they still need things from you, but it's different because I'm a woman, you're a woman.
You're watching me be a woman in the world and go through different phases.
I mean, we keep doing this, but that's a whole conversation.
All right. Thank you so much for listening.
Remember this was going to be 15 minutes?
Yeah, this was going to be our 15-minute episode.
40.
Oh, hi. Okay. Well, there you go. This is how we do it.
Thanks, girls.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I would love to hear your feedback. Message me on Instagram or write a review. And of course, if you know a woman who could benefit from this episode, please share it with her, because it can heal her life. And that's what sisters do. Love always, Dr. Amanda.